Okay, and we're live. We're live. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Earth School Journey. I'm Umi Steph, and this is my lovely co-host, Uni. We are your peer guides, and this week we are doing our study hall on spiritual hygiene. Ah, so how are you doing this week, Uni? How's it going?
Going good. This has been such an amazing month in spiritual hygiene. Just really highlighting the things that I know I need to be doing for myself and my life. It's just been really amazing to be reminded of these things and put them at the forefront, especially at a
Right.
time like this when there's so much going on in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I know for me this month has been a real um reminder that I had some work to do on my own spiritual practice and my own spiritual hygiene. um it's a, I don't want to say a practice what you preach thing, but it kind of is. I mean, because we're not up here preaching, but we've been talking about this. And when you're tapped in and tuned in to spirit, and you start talking about something, like it's gonna highlight all of the areas in your life where you're doing well and where you're not doing so well, and that's what this month has been for me. So
Same.
yeah. So, this month has been really interesting. I think we have really talked about, a lot. We highlighted a bunch of different practices that you can use as your spiritual hygiene. We have kind of talked about the necessity of it. We did a nice assessment in the beginning so that you could assess whether or not your spiritual hygiene practice was working for you, or whether or not you just absolutely needed to start one because you didn't have one at all, you know? And we did our homeroom check-in last week to kind of see where we were with this. And I know that we each shared how we were doing with that. And this week, we wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of discipline in spiritual practice, and, you know, what's really important, like why it's so important. Because I feel like maybe we didn't talk a lot about that in the beginning. We did, but we did not directly, right? Um, and then for the second half of the program, we're gonna highlight some resources that you can use in starting a spiritual practice. Just some of the things that Uni and I have used, some of the things that we like, um, and that have worked for us. By no, standard is this like the list. There's nothing, extent. This is just some of the things that we like. I probably have 100 more books than the two or three that we're gonna mention. I probably have 10 different gurus that I follow and all of that. And I'm sure you probably could say the same, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So let's just jump in. I mean, I really wanted to kind of go into like what the significance of spiritual hygiene is in our lives. And, for me, the significance of spiritual hygiene really is the cleaning out of our consciousness. Just like you have a practice of brushing your teeth every day, you know, and that builds up is going to come back throughout the day, and you're going to brush them before you go to sleep at night. And then as you sleep, you're going to get up and you're going to brush them again in the morning, because the buildup is constant. So you have to constantly do that over and over again to keep yourself in good, teeth hygiene, right? But the same goes for our consciousness. As you interact with other humans, as you watch, TV and take in all of this social media and other things like that, you have to clear your consciousness out. And so, the significance of it for me is the cleansing of my consciousness and the constant renewal and reconnection to spirit and reopening that pathway. I don't want to say reopening, but more like keeping it clear, because I feel like the pathway is always open. We let it get gunked up. What do you think about that? What do you have to say about the significance of spiritual hygiene, Uni?
Well, first, I agree with you 100%. You know, it's not a just one and done sort of situation when it comes
Hmm.
to spiritual hygiene, when it comes to connecting with spirit. And, you know, what we've been kind of taught, you know, traditionally is, you know, we go to church on Sundays, and, you know, sometimes that's kind of it. We go to church on Sundays. Maybe we say our prayers at night before we go to bed, or we pray before we eat. But it's deeper than that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's so much more than that. Like you said, we are in contact with all different types of entities and spirits and people and places and things. And these things have influence on us whether we realize it or not. And the thing about keeping your spirit connected, or just in tune with your higher self, is when you are not, over time, you start to forget about, you know, that connection. You start to get comfortable being
Hmm.
in the dirt. You start to, you know, they say if you sit in, you know, mess long enough, it stops smelling, you know? And so, you know, and it's so true, because you know, it's one of those things where you want to make sure that when stuff comes up, you're smelling it and you're like, no, that's not, I need, you know what I mean? I don't need on that. So that's really, like, in a nutshell, the significance.
Right.
Just making sure that when things are not good for me, I know that they're not good. And I know that I either need to handle it in one way or another. If it's to address it, if it's to move away from it, how, whatever it is that I need to do, I need to, you know, handle it. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I just want to say, good job keeping that PG.
I try.
You did a great job.
Thank you so
We tried to keep it. We tried to keep it on the up and up for for the YouTube community.
much. No one get flagged around here. We just
Yeah,
getting started.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, you do really, you need to know when things are off, you know, and it's so easy to get in the rut of I gotta do, I gotta do, I gotta do, I gotta do in the physical, that you forget that the spiritual needs tending to as well, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm guilty of that. I will, you know, totally admit that I'm guilty of that from time to time. You know, there are times when I'm on my spiritual practice, when I'm, you know, getting to those things every day and making sure that I'm clearing out my consciousness and, you know, listening and taking in spirit and give, you know, doing the gratitude work, doing the forgiveness work, doing all of the things, you know. And then there are times where I'm just feeling overwhelmed by life, you know, where life is coming at you fast, especially when things seem to bam, 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 which life just has a tendency to do. You'll be like, everything was good. When did everything just start?
Right.
You know, like, oh, we had such a great summer. And then, you know, fall rolls around and you're like, when did this get so busy? You know what I mean? And at least that's been my experience in the last few weeks is like life is coming hard. And I've realized that in talking about this, which is, it's so divine, the timing that we decided to talk about this, and we chose spiritual hygiene because of Virgo season, because Uni and I are really into tuning into the astrology of things, and you know, and we were like, what a better time to talk about spiritual hygiene than, you know, the fall equinox and Virgo season and all of that. Completely not realizing that it was also going to be the perfect timing for our personal lives. I, I don't know about you, but it definitely was for me.
Absolutely. It's so true, because, like I was saying, we were talking yesterday, and I was like, you know, we have, like, these seasons and astrological, astronomy, all of these things that have been studied for hundreds of years have not been studied for no reason. Like, these, they haven't come to these conclusions just
Mhm.
out of the clear blue sky. Like, no, this is the time, like, you've had, you know, you were partying in the summer, you know, you may have been drinking and being merry, and being out in the sun and having a good time and eating and, just living life abundantly in Leo season. Leo is like, they want
Mhm.
everything excess. I'm a Leo, so I get it. I don't know when to stop sometimes, but in Virgo season, it's like, no, 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 no. We got to clean up all the stuff we did in Leo.
Mhm.
So, really being in alignment with these, with the astrology, with the seasons, with everything that has been put before us, I think is really important. I don't think it's something that we should cast to the side as, demonic, as some people say, or
Mhm.
it's so taboo and it's witchy and all these things. No, these are the seasons. We live in a cyclical world. You know what I mean? And it keeps going around. So yes, I think this was the perfect time, and I'm sure we're
Mhm.
not the only ones who are feeling this way.
Right. Right.
I'll talk about that a little later. What we discovered, spiritual hygiene too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it's really interesting because, you know, living in tune with your, astrology with also is it's to me is the same as being in tune with mother nature,
Right.
because the universe and the galaxies and the stars and the moon and all of that really is just an extension of the natural world, nature. Mother Gaia is our planet, yes, but she is a planet in a, solar system, in a galaxy, in a universe. And so it's just, this greater extension. And it's just so divine that we were tuned into that and that this came up. And I know this might feel a little off topic, because we're talking about spiritual hygiene, but it's not, in the sense that tuning in, being tuned in and tapped in is a part of the spiritual hygiene of knowing, it's now a season of clearing. It's now a season of harvesting, which we're going to talk a lot about next month. Harvesting, receptive. You do all this spiritual hygiene work. At some point, you're going to reap some benefits. You know what I mean? So they go hand in hand, but it's really about living in tune with the cyclical nature of life, and it is a cycle. It does come around. And the same thing with our spiritual practice. It ebbs and it flows. It ebbs and it flows. And that ebbing and flowing, I feel like, and you can tell me how you feel, but I feel like the ebbing and flowing of it is what makes you appreciate the necessity of it, because until you fall off and something goes wrong, or something starts to feel wrong, is it's not always that it goes wrong, it's that, oh, I'm just feeling you know what I mean? Then you go, oh yes, my practice is lacking. My practice needs to be, or maybe I've outgrown that practice and it's time to level that practice up, you know? And so yeah, I think that it's just beautiful the way that it has all come together.
Yeah, I agree. I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. And I'm so grateful to be in this information age where we have so much so readily available to us so that we can find these things. Um,
Mhm.
my mom, she was on a similar journey, and she would like travel to New York and meet with different groups and people, but she passed away at a very young age. And so she wasn't able to like really like pass that on to me. And like, the other older, women in my family, my aunts and older cousins and them, like they weren't into these sorts of things, you know what I mean? And so for me to like find, this information and really tap in, it's really brought my life to a whole new level, you know what I mean? And I'm so grateful to have been, practicing, just staying in tune and alignment with the universe, with, the elements and the seasons and all that good stuff,
Mhm.
astrology, for quite some time now, where I do, there is evidence. I can say that, I think who is it, Jay-Z, he's like, this spiritual ish really works, you know what I mean? True, like, you know what I mean? So I'm
Right.
alive during this time, because I feel like, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was out there, but it wasn't so easily, available.
Accessible. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I mean, we really do have access to so much information now, and this is, this is wisdom that used to be hidden. This is what used to be considered a cult. These are things that used to be woo woo. These are things that were ostracized and taboo and all of that. And to just have ready access, without persecution, you know,
For real.
I no, for real, like women were burned at stakes, and there was all kinds of, history around how these things were suppressed. And so having access and being able to have a podcast like this where we get to talk about it, and to not just talk about the practices, but to talk about the humanness of interacting with these practices, which is what I love about our podcast, is that we get to talk about the humanness of it and the imperfection and implementing it, and the learning to perfect it. And like that is the joy of this for me, is to be honest and to be real and be like, yeah, I'm doing these spiritual practices. Yes, I'm tuned in, and yes, I can do better. I can do so much better sometimes. Right.
Same.
So, in talking about doing better, right? One of the things that I wanted us to really have a conversation about, and Uni, I know this is really big for you because this was one of the things that we connected on, and it was consistency and discipline and accountability, you know.
Oh, deep breath.
I
Okay. Yeah.
know.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you, but it just hit me. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, go ahead. I'm gonna turn it over to you to say what you feel you need to say.
Oh man. Honestly, I feel like, consistency and accountability, and discipline is not an issue for me. I've realized, I have to give myself credit that I definitely can pick up the ball and run with it. You know what I mean? I definitely
Mhm,
can do what I need to do. I think the biggest thing for me is that I have not been still doing this like long enough. You know what I mean? I feel like it is, and it's not to make an excuse, but it's like if you've been living a certain life for, 30 years. So I started really kind of like on my spiritual journey, maybe when I was around 30 years old, give or take a few years, I'm in my 40s now, right? So I've
mhm,
really been on this journey for about maybe 10, 15 years tops, and that's at the high end, And so to
right.
think about, I was living 30 whole years almost doing, living a completely different life, eating, certain things, I was partying a lot. I was watching Love and Hip Hop. No disrespect to Love and Hip Hop, but I don't watch that stuff now. You know what I mean? I was just living a completely different life, I was drinking, I was partying, I was smoking, it was just a totally different thing. I was in corporate America. I didn't realize that that was sucking the life out of me.
Mhm,
I was living a completely different life, and so still working towards, really making sure that I am getting up and doing my morning meditation and prayers. I have a sound bowl, working with my sound bowl, drinking my herbal teas, making sure I'm getting enough fruits and vegetables, praying throughout the day, spirit guide me, Lord guide me, most high, all of those things. I feel like it's still something that I'm learning to do on a more consistent basis, and I'm just
mhm,
honest. And there's times when I'm like really tapped in. There's times when I'm doing great. And then, something may come along, and I don't know if it's a trigger, or, a crisis of some sort, where I may get knocked off, and I may go back to not all of the things that I was doing before, but
mhm.
some of the things that I was doing before. Maybe I'm watching a lot of Netflix, or I'm kind of zoning out. Maybe I'm scrolling a lot more than I would like to instead of reading. And it's really about having the accountability, which is so great about our circle and our sisterhood, our friendship, having that accountability. Like, you'll send me something and I'm like, oh, and I'll watch it. And now I'm back on my path, and I'm back to, watching spiritual videos. I'm, picking up my books. I'm, just back on that path, because instead of someone sending me, no disrespect, again, a love and hip hop clip or a shade room post, I have friends that send me, spiritual things, and, just reminders to keep me on my path. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I feel like when it comes to the discipline, the consistency, the accountability, I just want people to like not beat themselves up about it, because most of us were living, we were like born and bred out, we were in the womb living a certain life. So this is like even
Right.
before we came out, we were, our parents were living a certain way, and then we out, and we were nurtured in that way for a very long time. So it's in our DNA, it's in our cells, it's in us in a
Mhm.
deep way. And so it can be challenging to go against that, because it feels like we're like somewhere deep down inside, it's almost like we're going against ourselves, but we're not. We
Right.
are we are, I want to say metamorphosizing, or if that
Transforming.
to
Yeah.
into our true selves, what
Right.
we decided. Because even, our parents, if they would have known better, I think a lot of them would have done better too. You know what I
Right.
mean? And a lot of this information wasn't as readily available, and a lot of them were thinking that it was, woo woo and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
I have to say about consistency and accountability, just don't beat yourself up. If you get off track, get back on the ball, and make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people who are going to, I have several sisters who send me different things that either they're working on, or things that they find across, social media or on the internet, that help me stay on my, on track with what I'm doing. And it's always so helpful. Even my landlord, she sends me like little memes and, uplifting verses every day. And sometimes it's exactly what I need. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like making sure that you have the right people to help you stay on track, because it can be very challenging to, stay consistent and be disciplined.
Yeah. No, I appreciate everything that you said, and it makes me think about the fact that, you were saying that, maybe you've been doing this for like 10, 15 years maybe. I am way newer to spirituality than that. I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, and I just really, I want to say 5 years.
Mhm.
5 good solid years. 2019, it was probably the beginning of 2018 when I really started to hear about these things. Like, it came into my awareness, and then I started listening more and learning more. But it really wasn't until like 2020 that I started to practice.
Mm.
It was more like a learning, like learning about it and an interest in it, but I wasn't really practicing until about 2020. And considering where I was, there was a lot of work to do. There was a lot of gunk to clean out. There was a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, there was a lot that had to be moved. And, we want everything now. And we want to think, oh, well, I'm not doing it hard enough or good enough or perfect enough or whatever. I'm not consistent enough. I need to add another. I'm not doing that thing. I'm not doing this thing. And so things are not changing for me,
Mhm.
right? Not realizing that, like, you have to tear down the old foundation and build an entire new one. Like, you are rebuilding your entire foundation of your life. When the foundation of your life used to be built on, I have to work hard. Um, Nobody is here to help me. God isn't listening to me. I'm not good enough. God isn't, gonna favor me, or whatever your religious, sin this, blah, blah. you have to tear that down and rebuild it. And occasionally in the rebuilding process, you accidentally pick up some of those old bricks and then you realize they don't fit. And you may have to tear them back down and put them back again, And I definitely had some of that. I had a lot of the having to let go of guilt, or not just guilt, but feeling convicted and condemned, God is going to smite me, around a lot of different things, like you get caught in that mindset, and it sometimes makes you shy away from practice because you're like, well, my practice isn't going to be good enough anyway, you know and that's not the truth at all. The truth is you get on and you do and you do, and if you fall off then you get back on and you do, it's, and you, until you can ride that bike without the training wheels.
Right.
And you have to be flexible enough to try different things. We live in a world where you know everyone is just bombarded with information and social media, and we're on social media right now. You know what I mean? Like, this is a way of life now, and you can get sucked in such a way that it's unhealthy. And so, like, everybody has a touch of the ADHD. Everybody has a touch of ADD, and the attention spans are really hard to come by. And so you throw someone who's just used to being on the go, on the go, on the go. Like, I was an attorney. There was no stopping. You know what I mean? There was no I get a sick day. There was none of that. And now you're telling me to sit and meditate. When sit and have a meal wasn't even possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this was okay, I'm going to eat at my desk kind of lifestyle. You know, to be flexible with yourself. Yes, the goal may be able to sit quiet for 10 minutes, but start where you are. If you need to start with a moving meditation, yoga, qigong, walking in the park.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A walking meditation, a guided meditation where you put headphones on and you listen to this and you visualize something, and slowly you make progress as you put in effort towards getting to that place of being able to have stillness. And I still struggle with stillness. I love when I'm in the flow of it and I can really like and just be in that stillness, and it's such a beautiful place to be, you know and I still fall off. I still have times when it's just too hard to stop my brain from talking to itself constantly, and I may have to switch gears and try something a little different and not beat myself up, and
Mhm.
just get back up and do it again. And so that's like the biggest message I want to put out there. It's like, don't beat yourself up. Just get up, get back on it, start over, maybe try something a little bit slightly different that's going to lead you in the same direction. A mantra meditation, chanting, you know what I mean? And I'm just talking about meditation right now, but there's other practices as well, you know what I mean, where you can start small. Even changing your dietary habits, that to me is a huge spiritual practice, is changing your dietary habits. And it was one
Yeah.
of the first ones that I started to practice, which was cleaning up my diet and not allowing me to put things in my body temple that were not good for it.
Mhm.
And that was one of my very first spiritual practices, was cutting out crappy food, you know and but it's not something that happened overnight. It was, first I'm going to let this go, and then I'm going to let that go, and then I'm going to and it didn't happen all at one go. Now I'm pretty much pescatarian. I don't do dairy. I try to cut out as much processed foods, even when it comes to like the vegan foods. Like, I don't really like to do a lot of processed stuff. I will, because sometimes you just need to eat, and it's but I keep it to as much of a minimum as I can,
Right.
you know, and I know that in time I'll probably eliminate it, completely. But I don't beat myself up for it when I need to go grab the Morning Star or whatever it is
Right.
to get, you know what I mean? If I have to get a prepackaged black bean burger rather than make one my own, I'm not gonna beat myself up. My stomach might hurt, but
Hey, your stomach is like, wait, what do you
we
want
don't do this. What's
to
happening here?
know better?
Right. But again, like I I had to get myself out of this mindset of I'm wrong, I'm bad, and God's not gonna let anything good happen to me because I ate a black bean burger that I didn't make myself. Because let's be real, we do get hard on ourselves like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the most insignificant and silly little thing, but we make it this really big thing, and it impedes our practice because
Yeah.
we're afraid to like go back because we feel like we're not going to be accepted, when the truth of the matter is the only person not accepting you is you.
Right. That part.
Right. So before we move into the resources, is there anything else you want to add kind of about the significance or the consistency or not beating yourself up, anything like that?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it.
Cool. I feel like these lives go so quick. I look up and I'm like, we've been on for 30 minutes already. It's time to transition.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of talked about not beating yourself up and this idea of rebuilding your foundation, we wanted to give you a few of the resources that we have used, um, that other people maybe that we know have used, but really stuff that we've used personally that is helpful when you're first starting or you're trying to deepen a spiritual practice. And the first one is one that I'll talk about because I'm heavily associated with Agape International Spiritual Center and Agape East here in Virginia on the East Coast. And if you're trying to start a daily prayer and meditation practice, Agape International on their Facebook page has daily prayer Monday through Saturday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then meditation is Monday through Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific time or 3 p.m. Eastern time. I found this really helpful, especially like mid pandemic when you didn't really have access to like going out and going to prayer or going to a place to meditate with other people. But even now, if I need to tap in, it's a great resource to have to be able to tap in with someone. And it's live, it's right there. It's also on the page, it's recorded and it's up there, so if you miss it you can always just tap in a little bit later. But I think that's a really great resource if you're just looking for someone, like you're looking for some accountability or something to some of us just need somebody to practice with in the beginning, just somebody to be there with. And that's what I find this is for me. So the Agape Daily Prayer and Meditation lives on Facebook Live. We're going to have links and, things like that, descriptions in the description below. So you can be sure to check that out. I think we still need to add some links in there. So it may not be immediately available after the show, but I would say before tomorrow, we'll probably have them all up there if you're looking to take advantage of any of these resources. And so I think the next one, I'm going to turn it over to you, Uni, because this is one that you use.
Yes, yes. So I have been introduced to a lot of Chinese medicine, a lot of just Asian healing techniques, period. And a couple of the things that I've used in the past are like acupuncture, which is amazing, acupressure, that's also amazing. But the one that I've linked here is gua sha. And this is a young lady that I found on Instagram, just I don't know, just randomly. And her Instagram is at Treatment by Laurel. And gua sha is an ancient Chinese technique that was started over like maybe 2,000 years ago, where they use these like Gouache your tools. They like sometimes they're made out of jade or bone, and they will scrape or like just give pressure to certain body parts. I've seen her do the top of your head, your crown, your face. It helps to, as we're starting to age, our face starts to droop. She does like different facial techniques, neck, everything, your whole body. And I think it's really important for spiritual hygiene because it really promotes circulation. And one of the
Mm,
that we can get like really messed up with as we get older is stiffness in our bones, and our metabolism can slow down and things like that. And so keeping your circulation, keeping your blood flowing, and especially with these ancient techniques that have been used for thousands of years,
mhm,
I think it's like really important. So when we were looking, we were thinking of, resources that we were going to share. Like she was like one of the first ones that came to my mind because she gives a free treatments on Instagram. She'll walk you through it. She has different tools for sale, but I just use my hands. To be honest with you, I haven't purchased anything. I just use my hands and to use the techniques, and I'm telling you, they've been amazing. If I'm not mistaken, she's on Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's a great like mid-morning kind of like pick me up. I think she's only on for like 30 minutes. So if you have like even if you're at work, like if you have like a little break area or something, maybe you can utilize that. It's absolutely amazing. And then the other one that I have here that I'll add the link is yoga. Yoga with Nico. She's amazing. She has so many different free yoga videos on her YouTube. I'm talking about from the chakras to wherever the sun is, the astrology for the month. I mean, she has all different things. I mean, if you have different ailments, whatever you have going on, Nico has free yoga videos from 5 minutes up to an hour. There's no ads. You don't have to worry about being interrupted, and she's absolutely amazing.
nice, nice. That is awesome. Okay. The next thing we have on here, we talk about this a lot. We talk about accountability partners. But honestly, I can't speak about accountability partners enough
Right.
because having a partner, somebody to show up for, and I know we should be able to show up for ourselves. We really should. But in the beginning, it can be hard. And not only in the beginning, even once you have an established practice, when things are getting rough, when challenges are approaching, having an accountability partner, it keeps you in the flow of practice. And so that's a resource. You have to find your own accountability partner. It would be great if at some point our community is strong enough that we can, have people, match up with other people. That would be wonderful. But you do have to find an accountability partner, and this is why um I'm so excited about us building community, because when you have a community of like-minded people, you can reach out to someone who you feel, connected to or in tune with, and be like, "Hey, do you want to be an accountability partner? Do you want to get up and do yoga every day? Do you want to get up and walk with me? Even if we're just on the phone, or you know what I mean? Or do you want to pray with me?" I mean, I talk all the time about all my prayer partners, and I love my collection of prayer partners. I had someone say to me last week, "Well, can you add me to your rotation?" I'm like, gladly. Gladly, and they are 5 to 10 minute conversations on the phone where, I have XYZ going on. That's what I need prayer for. What do you need prayer for? Well, I need XYZ. And then we pray and then we're out. It's not a long thing. It's not taking a whole lot of time out of my day. You know what I mean? And I love that, and you can have accountability partners for any habit that you're looking to make, as long as you find someone who's looking to make either, the same or a similar habit. You just, hey, be my accountability partner in this. And sometimes it takes some time to find a good accountability partner. I have to say, I've been through, you know, good prayer partners and bad prayer partners. I've been through good accountability partners and bad accountability partners. When I'm the one who's always being accountable and you're not showing up, well, it's time to get rid of that accountability partner and say, hey, maybe you're just not where I'm at right now, and I need to find somebody else to help hold me accountable. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think part of growing spiritually and maturing spiritually is being able to kindly say, this isn't working, or this is not where I'm led anymore. I need to, do something else. Um, so that's kind of my spiel for accountability partners. Is there anything you want to add about that?
I agree with everything you said. I think it's so helpful to have an accountability partner, and definitely, find someone who can show up as well, and it can be hard. Like, we all have a lot going on. Every but if we try to make the main thing, you know what I mean, find
Right.
someone that for you. And it's just so important to just overall, like I said earlier, try to surround yourself with people who have like minds, who have similar interests. You
Right.
can't really expect someone to be your accountability partner when their focus is on something else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've, so yeah, it can definitely be challenging. I've gone through my fair share. Even coaches, I've tried to have coaches
Right.
before, and they have other things going on, and I'm like, but I'm paying you to coach
Right.
me
Right.
here. I'm ready. I'm like, okay, like, I just need someone to hold me account. I just need that, whatever, just a swift
Mm-hmm.
career, whatever you got, just give it to me. And then it's
Right.
like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So sometimes you have to pull yourself up by the britches, which is no problem. But making sure that you have people who can support you along the way as well. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do see us expanding our accountability circle, and bringing more people in, people who are serious and who have similar interests and like minds. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, so yeah. Another thing I want to say about accountability partners is, sometimes you may have someone who is really, you really click with, you're really in tune with. It's just timing is a thing, right? You might not, your timings might not align. Maybe they're a morning person, you're a night person, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't always mean that you have to like be like, okay, we can't talk anymore, we can't meet anymore, or whatever. It could be that that person is good in a pinch. That
Mm,
person is the person that you call out of the blue. Or I try not to call anybody out of the blue, but you can shoot a text message and be like, I'm struggling, do you think you'll have time?
mm,
And when you're in a situation like that where something is feeling really heavy, and you need someone to pray with you, or you need someone to sit with you and meditate with you, or you need someone to like walk with you, or whatever the thing is, that maybe their role isn't a daily accountability partner. Maybe it's a in the thick of it partner. You know what I mean? So also, I always want to encourage flexibility and kind of thinking about these things. But if you're looking for a daily accountability partner, like, there's no shame in being like, you're not being an accountability partner that I need. I need somebody who's going to show up.
right.
There's no shame in that. But you can do that in a gentle way. You can do that in a loving way, in a way that honors our oneness and honors our loving self. And so I just wanted to say that. So I think we're going to get into the books now,
Mhm.
and I have a couple of books here with me. One of the things that it's just so divine. Now, when we were thinking about spiritual hygiene as the topic for this month, we did some internet searches and things like that. And, we didn't find a lot. There wasn't a lot out there about spiritual hygiene. There was a couple of blogs that came up, like with some just random people I'd never heard of, and they were good. Some of them were extra religious that I found. and things like this. I mean, we really kind of were scraping at like resources for spiritual hygiene. Um, and lo and behold, Uni and I both, because we're both on the same mailing list, get an email from none other than Ayanla Van Zant with the topic of spiritual hygiene.
Right hand of God. We look right hand of God. In like 3 weeks into the month, we
Yep,
we I'm telling you, we had listen. I'm still speechless.
I know. And she, Uni reached out. She was like, "Have you seen this email?" And I'm looking at it, and I look at it. I'm like, "Oh my god, no, yeah, I got that email too. I didn't see it until she had pointed it out to me because I hadn't checked my email." And then the next week there was another one about spiritual hygiene, and then I realized that she wrote a book, and the book is forthcoming. It's not out yet, so it's probably why we didn't see it at the time. But also the same day, like the same day that we did our first episode on spiritual hygiene, um, Ayanna Van Zant was on Reverend Michael's podcast, Take Back Your Mind, talking. I don't remember her mentioning the word spiritual hygiene when I listened to it. I also didn't listen to it the same day that it went out. I
Mhm.
don't think. Or maybe I just was half listening to it. I don't know, but I don't remember her mentioning spiritual hygiene. I do remember her mentioning um not only do you need to awaken, but you need to stay awake. And the way to stay awake is through consistent practice, which is spiritual hygiene, right? And so, when we recently realized that she had a book coming out, you know, it was just like, wow, and so we're gonna link to the pre-order for that because I love me some Ayanla. I really do. I never really watched Ayanla fix my life, but I definitely got way more involved with her when she got, more on her independent, spirituality, and really went on her own. And I just absolutely love her and her work and how honest and she is with it. And so I'm looking forward to this book. It's not a resource that either of us have actually used yet because obviously it's not out yet, but I did want to mention that. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that because we don't really have a whole lot of information yet.
Yeah, no, we don't have a lot of information yet. She does say that, spiritual hygiene offers a life affirming framework to cleanse the mind, heart, body, and soul, facilitating a return to sacred alignment. So I'm really excited for this book.
Me
And
too.
it was just so divine because I was like, wait a minute, like we know, and then you told me that I miss Ayamla is a Virgo sun, which I didn't know.
Yes.
And so it makes perfect sense that she would come out with something, a book about spiritual hygiene. But we had, like you said, we hadn't seen anything about it. We had, we were like, we kind of felt like we made it up. Like we were like, oh, let's do spiritual hygiene. And then we did a search on it. And then we were like, well, there's not much out there. Yeah, let's go with that. It's something different. It's not as, it's not one of those, words that are overused or phrases that's overused. And so we're like, yeah, let's go with that. And then we get the email. So it's definitely
Hmm.
the alignment. And I'm just grateful to be in alignment with
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. It does. It's like when you take a step out in faith and you start moving in that direction, you get signs. And wow, was this a big one?
Yeah, it really, really, really.
Yeah, this was a really big one. That was pretty awesome. And in that same vein, one of the books that we wanted to mention before we knew that that was a thing, and I'm gonna pick up my copy of it right now,
Mhm.
was Acts of Faith by Ayanna Van Zandt. In this book right here, it's 365 days of readings. Um, it's daily meditations for people of color, right? And I Absolutely love this book. I do sometimes read it because it does have individual days, like the actual date of the year. But my favorite way to use this book in the morning is to just do this,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever my eyes land on is the page that I read, and it's always, always, always exactly what I needed. And it has like reflection questions. So if journaling is a part of your spiritual practice, you can use that as a prompt, or you can just meditate on the reading and really sit with it in your spirit. And that's contemplative meditation is what they call that. And you just sit with it and let it marinate in your spirit. So this is definitely one of the books. This stays at the top of my bed. So, like, if I'm ever having trouble sleeping or when I first wake up in the morning, this is something I reach for because it's one of my go-tos. Anything you want to add to that, Uni?
No, it's absolutely amazing, and I can't find my copy. I've been looking all over. I have books everywhere. First of all, it's ridiculous. I couldn't find my copy, but yeah, it's an amazing, amazing book. I have a few of her books, and I agree with you. Like sometimes it is good to just open it up and go to whatever page intuitively opens and reads that, and it is always right what you
Right.
need. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's so many other books, you're going to take what resonates with you. We're sharing with you what resonates with us. I probably have 15 other books that are 40 days of this, 30 days of that, I have so many of those. And they ebb and flow. There's seasons that, sometimes this is what my soul needs. Sometimes I need to see something in a different book. And sometimes you just need to pick one thing and stick with it. you
Right.
know what I love about this particular book is that it's 365 days, so that if you're really in the beginning of a practice, you can stick with this throughout the year in the building of it, which is great. But there's others. There's like Science of Mind 365. That's another 365 day one. um there's a whole lot of like metaphysical publications that come out on a regular basis that you could also tap into. So like I said, I don't want to limit anybody to any specifics, but that's my go-to.
I hear you.
Is there any other books that maybe you want to share?
I did have One Day My Soul. Since we were talking about Ayanla, I did pick up One Day My Soul just opened up, and so this is the
Another
one
good one.
that I was able to find. And it's all about it's not necessarily like a 40-day. Well, it is. I'm sorry. It is it a 40-day? It is a 40-day. My
Yeah.
apologies. Um it's the way that it's set up. It's like it's not like the one pagers like those. That's what I was saying. Like it's not like a one page like per day, like those books. Like each day has like a few pages that you read, and it has like reflection questions as well. It has affirmations, things
Hmm.
that you can journal, and things that that you should remember. You know what I mean? There's just so much in this book that it's just amazing. Like I've written all in it, and I've got
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. And it's just a beautiful book. So while we were on Ayanla, I was like, oh, let me pick this one up because it's one of her like OG, one of her first books. And sometimes it's like going back to the beginning with these authors. Like, of course, when you have years of lived experiences, it's always good to get their newest books. But sometimes their OG books, like when they were like what did they say, when the rent was due, when
Right.
they when they were like really going through it, sometimes getting their OG books are really, really good. So I wanted to highlight this one as well.
Yeah, and that I love that one too. If I remember correctly, it's if you're really looking to start a morning evening practice, because
Yeah.
if I remember, you have to do something in the morning. If you do it the way the book instructs, right? It's gonna
Mhm.
have you do a morning session, and then it's gonna have you do some things before you go to bed at night, which is beautiful when you're trying to build a practice, you
Sure.
know. So yes, another really great book. I love that book as well. I have one more, and I had forgotten about this one until like today. Like, which is it's really funny because this is one of my teachers, one of my actual teachers. It's called 10 Principles for a Life Worth Living. It's by Karen Mills
Mhm.
Alston. And Mills Austin is one of my personal teachers. And I took this, she taught this as a class with Agape mid pandemic, if I remember correctly. And it was when I was really starting my spiritual practice. And so it was so great for that. It also has a workbook. I don't know if I have the workbook with me. Do I? Not that it matters, but yeah, okay, I do. Has a workbook to do the journaling portions of, what it suggests in here. And I don't like to write in my books, so I just copy them things down, but I bought the workbook anyway. Um, And although I do have my notes from the original class, like literally written in the book, but what I love about this book is it takes you through different principles and practices that you can incorporate, and it really breaks it down in a very like human way, right?
Mhm.
If really, um, there there's this one chapter that really it impacted me, and this is why I wanted to talk about this book. I think it's principle 7, and it's about saying yes.
Mhm.
And saying yes to what your spirit is guiding you to do, right? And just want to turn this light down. It got super bright. Um,
Mhm.
saying yes. It's called Living in the Yes Zone. I believe that's the exact chapter. And what I learned, I took like the principles I took away from that chapter were so impactful because she talks about how your no can empower your yes,
Yes.
and how sometimes saying no will open up the way for a yes.
Ooh.
And when especially when you're in the beginning of building a practice,
Yeah.
a spiritual practice, you're not used to saying no. And you say yes to so much, but you don't say yes to yourself.
Right.
And you don't say yes to doing what's good for you. You say yes to a lot of things that are not in your best interest. And what I loved about this book, because in the very beginning of my practice, I needed to know that it was okay to say no.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I cannot recommend this book enough. 10 Principles for a Life Worth Living by Karen Mills Austin. It's not currently in the show notes, but we'll definitely get it in there with the link because that book was definitely instrumental in me changing the way I thought about spiritual practice, and how I thought about really embracing spirituality in general. I mean, there's more in there. There's stuff about gratitude and meditation and affirmations and high speech is what she calls it, like, high speak, like really speaking highly and not using your words very carefully, so there was a lot in that book and in that class when I took it. I don't know that she teaches it as a class anymore. I think that may have been just the only time I've ever seen it. I'm so glad that I got to be a part of it because at that moment in my life, I needed it, you know.
Right.
And so I really wanted to recommend that because it was really, really big for me.
Awesome.
Um,
Hearing that.
yeah. Any other resources before we kind of log off? We're at 59 minutes, man. We This thing just flew.
No, that's perfect. It's perfect. This is great.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I am so grateful for you all joining us, and we're going to try to make it a practice of signing off with a brief prayer. And so, I'm gonna first say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. Like, comment, subscribe, share, most of all. If this has been uplifting to you, if you've learned something new, if you feel supported by this, share it, like it, subscribe it. Let us know. We want to know that we're making a difference. It really does. We need some of that human acknowledgement from time to time. um, Uni, do you want to say something before I pray us out?
I just want to thank you all for watching. Those of you who are live, everyone who will watch on the replays. And yes, please like, comment, and share. We are looking forward to interacting, and we have a lot of good things coming up. We'll be building out our Patreon coming up. We'll have some daily practices. Book club, and our 21-day upgrade cycles that we'll be doing. We're still working on the name.
Yeah.
But we have a lot coming, and we really hope that you all will join us on this journey, as your peer guides. We truly see earth, this life on earth, as a journey. We see it as a school. We see it as an opportunity to come together and learn and make the world a better place. Like, that's the whole thing that I feel that a lot of people in supposed power are missing. We should be leaving this world a better place for everyone, not a select few, not the ones who just look like me and just look like you.
Right.
Every, you know. And so, keeping that in mind, we'd love for you to join us. And if that is your belief as well, we'd love for you to join us, and we'd love for you to, just start to, like Umi said, to comment and, interact and let us know what you think, and share some of your resources. If you have any books, any content creators, any, maybe you have a yogini who's super dope that you want to share with us, or you
Right.
have some who does qigong or something like that you want to share those in the comments. Spiritual hygiene is more important now than ever. The same way we have all this great information available to us that helps us to tap into our spirituality, there's a lot of other information on the other side as well coming at.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make sure that we're tapping into our spiritual hygiene. So share, maybe some of the things we shared may not help everyone, but maybe what you have to share will help someone. So,
Right.
and thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All right, Umi.
All right. So I'm just gonna take a minute to go within to that place where spirit is untouched. And I start in gratitude. How grateful I am for this day, for this breath, for this opportunity to be in spiritual community. How grateful I am for my sister in this podcast, Uni. I'm so grateful for each and every person who has joined us today and who will join later on the replay. I'm just going to recognize that there is only one power and presence, and it is the power and presence of love. And this love is the highest power in the universe, and it is the one life that we all live. I know that it is my life, it is Uni's life, it is the life of each and every person who is viewing this program, and each and every person around the world. And in that knowing of our unity, of our oneness, I'm just so thankful for this community and this space that we have been given to share these spiritual hygiene practices, for this message which flows through us of love, and this just times I just get so overwhelmed with the gratitude for the beauty of this community and this life. And so I let this be, and I say, and so it is. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. We're signing off. Thank you all.
Bye, guys. Thank you.